than the cost of scrubbing. We have an obligation to get this right.
This is a whole new vehicle, a whole new technology, a whole new purpose of going back to the moon in preparation to go to Mars. And yes, it's hard.
Long-term presence in lunar orbit. But before Orion can travel to our nearest celestial body, it must first make a few pit stops along the way to fuel up and get ready for flight.
As we leave here today, we're going to go to a facility that'll fuel the spacecraft with the rocket fuels and propellants it needs. We'll put a launch abort system on. We'll send it out to be stacked in the rocket and launched.
Orion's journey to the moon began on the bayou. NASA's Michoud Assembly Facility in New Orleans is where technicians with Lockheed Martin began welding the pieces of the spacecraft's underlying aluminum structure together. 1 year later, it arrived in Florida. The crew module isn't the only thing that makes up the Orion spacecraft. Teams also worked closely with the European Space Agency to build the service module, the element that will power Orion on its journey around the moon.
And when we have a full service module and a full crew module, then we stack the two together and we have what's called the crew service module for Artemis 1.
Under the Artemis program, NASA plans to not only return to the moon, but to use that as a stepping stone to go farther than any human has ever gone before, Mars. To get there, it's truly a cross-country and international effort among thousands of individuals.
You know, it really is a testament to the workforce. If you think about what we've been through over the years that they've been putting this together, and particularly think about the environment that this team was dealing with. We're dealing with COVID, and we're asking these folks to come into work every day and finish the spacecraft so we can keep this mission going. And we're excited.
And really, this is only the start of Orion's path to the pad.
It's a little hard to put into words when you think about the fact that we are in the first flow of what will be our nation's deep space exploration program. It hits you in the heart, and it really speaks to why we all are doing what we're doing.
I never thought as a little kid growing up I'd be part of something like this today. Now as a dad of two young girls, to be able to tell them what I do and to be able to have them someday watch the first woman stand on the moon is pretty amazing to me personally.
NASA is preparing for a journey back to the moon. To get there, we need tons of rocket power coming from our Space Launch System. It all started in Promontory, Utah, where Northrop Grumman manufactured each of the segments that make up the rocket's boosters. After a 10-day cross-country journey, the booster segments were delivered to Kennedy Space Center's Rotation, Processing, and Surge Facility, or RPSF. If this all sounds familiar, that's because it's the same facility that was used to process shuttle booster segments, which all came from Utah. Then they're ready to go to the iconic Vehicle Assembly Building, or VAB, where the rest of the motor segments are assembled and stacked on top of the mobile launcher.
This vehicle, of course, it's produced all across the country. Components all come here. They may be built around the country, but they all come together right here in the Vehicle Assembly Building.
Our SLS rocket will generate 8.8 million pounds of thrust to break through Earth's gravitational pull. That's more power than the Space Shuttle and the Saturn V rocket used. Teams with NASA's Exploration Ground Systems are responsible for assembling the boosters that will house the majority of that power. The twin solid rocket boosters, made up of 10 total motor segments, will stand nearly 17 stories when fully stacked. First, teams will inspect and prep the hardware. Next, they're ready to start stacking the segments, a process that takes time, patience, and a steady hand.
Once we have everything done in High Bay 4, we pick up the segment with a 325 crane, pick it up over the 16-4 crossover to where you see it now, and we begin stacking the segments. Each segment, we lift over the 16-4 crossover and stack it. Once we stack it, we put it on top of the segment below, and we put about 177 pins all the way around the whole thing to attach each segment.
And the pressure to perform the operation flawlessly can test the team's nerves.
There's a tremendous responsibility involved with processing flight hardware like this. It's nerve-wracking at times, but it's exciting. There's zero appetite for risk in a program like this.
Standing an impressive 212 feet tall and weighing a whopping 188,000 pounds, the core stage came all the way from Stennis Space Center in Mississippi. The core stage went through round after round of rigorous testing, including what's called its Green Run series. The successful final test resulted in some big emotions from the team. With over 700,000 gallons of propellant flowing through the core stage, its RS-25 engines firing for 8 minutes straight, the series involved 8 rounds that looked at systems individually before culminating in pure power. Following its arrival at Kennedy, teams moved the core stage into the VAB, where it was lifted by a crane and placed in between the twin solid rocket boosters.
Essentially, we have these two massive cranes that are located inside of the VAB, where we go ahead and we pick 2 points at the end of the core stage, one on the back portion of it and on the front portion of it. We lift it up to the point where we're able to transition it from a horizontal position over into a vertical position, and then essentially bring it way up to the top of the vehicle assembly building and cross it over into High Bay 3.
NASA's largest rocket stage, now fully integrated with the twin boosters, is ready to get Orion off the Earth. But it will take one more critical component to give the capsule that extra push it needs to journey tens of thousands of miles beyond the moon. With just a single RL-10 engine, the Interim Cryogenic Propulsion Stage, or ICPS, will provide over 20,000 pounds of thrust to send Orion on the ride of a lifetime. To connect the ICPS with the rocket stack, teams next added the Launch Vehicle Stage adapter to the core stage, followed by the ICPS. But before the spacecraft can be attached to the rocket, teams will conduct a series of tests to ensure all of SLS's components communicate properly with one another, plus the ground systems equipment, the launch control systems, and its software. Adding to the challenge, those methods for testing have changed significantly since the days of the Apollo program. Initially built in the 1960s to house assembly of the Saturn V, the VAB has undergone some major modifications to support several different kinds of rockets and spacecraft, whether they're going into low Earth orbit or venturing to deep space. At this point, the stack is nearly complete. All that's missing is the spacecraft itself. With fueling of Orion's crew and service modules complete, the spacecraft moves from the MPPF into the Launch Abort System facility. In July 2019, teams completed a critical test, the Ascent Abort 2 flight test, to validate the Launch Abort System works as expected. After reaching an altitude of about 6 miles, where the test spacecraft experienced high-stress conditions expected during launch, the abort sequence triggered. Within milliseconds, the abort motor fired to pull the crew module away to safety. Its attitude control motor flipped the capsule into the proper orientation, and the jettison motor fired to release the crew module for a splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean. Fully integrated with its launch abort system, the Orion spacecraft slowly makes its way to the VAB in the overnight hours. Upon its arrival, teams carefully lift and lower it onto the Orion stage adapter. With this operation, stacking is complete.
As soon as we roll out of the vehicle assembly building, High Bay 3, and the world gets a chance to see this rocket, I think it is going to be shocking.
Every single vehicle that has carried humans beyond the bounds of low Earth orbit has undergone integration and testing in that vehicle assembly building. The Space Launch System, mated with the Orion spacecraft, will continue this proud tradition.
NASA took a giant step toward returning humanity to the moon. The fully assembled Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft for the Artemis 1 mission made its debut outside the massive vehicle assembly building.
We've seen the mobile launcher outside, and it's massive, but now add an over 300-foot rocket on top of it, it's just going to be amazing.
Charlie Blackwell Thompson oversees the launch countdown, ultimately providing the go for launch.
Entity, launch director, representing this team and all the men and women that have worked to make this day happen, I proudly give you a go to roll the Artemis launch vehicle to the pad.
Once outside, the rocket began its nearly 4-mile journey to the pad, riding atop a 6.6 million pound crawler transporter, which was originally constructed to transport the Apollo moon rocket. Now, NASA's new moon rocket is making the same journey the Saturn V took 50 years ago.
It is amazing to see the culmination of all of this work of many years, to have a chance to then now see their work going over to the pad and then launching to go to the moon.
The rocket is rolling to historic Launch Complex 39B. It's launch pad used for both Apollo and shuttle launches, sending hundreds of astronauts to space throughout the decades, and now on tap to send hundreds more as we return to the moon and venture beyond to Mars. But for this mission, there will be no astronauts on board. Before the uncrewed Artemis 1 stack can launch to our nearest celestial body, it has to travel to the pad for a wet dress rehearsal.
Wet dress rehearsal is essentially launch without a launch. So wet dress is really our opportunity to find any issues or adjustments that we need to make in our launch countdown.
For Artemis 1, the wet dress rehearsal is the final and most critical test before the rocket can return to the launch pad for liftoff to the moon. During the countdown, over 730,000 gallons of supercooled liquid propellants will be loaded into the rocket as part of the nearly 2-day launch countdown.
Wet dress is the biggest milestone we have aside from launch, because that means that the rocket is now put together and then it tells us the rocket is ready to go for launch.
Behind that wet dress rehearsal is a launch team made up of hundreds of engineers monitoring each system of the 320-foot-tall Artemis 1 rocket and capsule. Sitting in firing room 1 is the core launch control team, monitoring hundreds of launch commit criteria to ensure the ground systems and flight hardware are ready for launch.
Now you would think that launch control team in Fire 1 is it, that's all you need. We have an expansive support team across really the entire NASA enterprise that is supporting us on launch day.
And that support spans the entire nation, from additional systems engineers sitting in Kennedy's Firing Room 2, to the flight control team at Johnson Space Center in Houston, to the contractors responsible for designing and building each segment of the rocket and capsule.
This team is really shaping up to be a great, very skilled, and ready to operate and execute launch for Artemis 1.
With the Artemis 1 launch team now fully certified and the wet dress rehearsal complete, SLS and Orion are ready for their final pit stop, returning to the VAB before venturing back to Launch Pad 39B for liftoff. The countdown to T-0 starts approximately 2 days before launch. Teams inside the Launch Control Center have been working around the clock, powering up each section of the rocket and configuring the launch pad to support the 8.8 million pounds of thrust our moon rocket will generate at liftoff.
As our 0 hour approaches for the Artemis generation, we do have a heightened sense of anticipation. We've noticed just the overall mood and focus within the team is definitely a positive one.
Over the past few years, teams have put in thousands of hours, performing simulations and rehearsals to ensure that they are ready for this moment. Today, we make history. With the launch of the most powerful rocket the world has ever seen, we are taking the first step in humanity's return to the moon.
I can tell you there's an energy and there's an excitement around the Kennedy Space Center, I would say, across the agency and all around the Space Coast as we get closer and closer to this launch.
This mission will validate that the rocket and capsule do perform as expected before future Artemis missions send astronauts to the lunar surface.
We have worked really hard to get here. The team has done an absolutely outstanding job.
we're up to the challenge, and I'm really looking forward to a successful test flight.
You are looking at the world's most powerful rocket and Orion spacecraft live on Launch Pad 39B. Artemis 1 embodies the hard work of thousands across the world, determined to explore for the benefit of all. Welcome, and thank you for joining us live at Kennedy Space Center, where the energy here is palpable as we attempt to make history today. I'm Megan Cruz, and this is NASA astronaut Kayla Barron. Kayla, great to have you here again.
It's so awesome to be here tonight. When I first walked up and saw the view from the desk here, I was just blown away.
Now, with all systems configured correctly, the launch director gives the final go for liftoff.
On behalf of all the men and women across our great nation who have worked to bring this hardware together to make this day possible,
and for the Artemis generation, this is for you. At this time, I give you a go to resume count and launch Artemis 1.
This mission goes with a lot of hopes and dreams of a lot of people. It's no longer the Apollo generation. It's the Artemis generation. And that brings new discoveries, a whole new world of discoveries.
T-minus 50 seconds and counting. The Space Launch System is now counting down to liftoff of Orion on its maiden voyage to the moon. And here we go.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we just watched Artemis 1 launch, our first step towards our next adventure into deep space.
It was incredible. It took my breath away, and I was tearing up. What an amazing accomplishment for this team.
So you guys know I have talked a lot about appreciating the moment that you're in. And we have worked hard as a team. You guys have worked hard as a team for this moment. This is your moment.
With Orion off the ground, Mission Control in Houston takes the reins. The successful launch of SLS is just the beginning. Orion will spend the next several weeks journeying around the moon, sending flight data back to teams here on Earth for real-time analysis. During its mission, Orion reached speeds traveling about 30 times as fast as the speed of sound.
This dramatic video of the Earth-Moon transit that took place showed and punctuated the fact that we were pressing away from our home planet to a distance of some 268,000 miles away from Earth, further than any human-rated spacecraft had ever traveled. For a spacecraft designed to return humans to Earth, eclipsing the mark set by the Apollo 13 vehicle back in 1970.
After several weeks of flight, it was time for Orion to return home.
A half-century later, NASA's newest moon explorer, the Orion spacecraft, is barreling its way back home after circumnavigating the moon and beyond in an elliptical distant retrograde orbit. Now less than 2 hours away from splashing down in the Pacific Ocean west of Baja, California, to complete its shakedown mission.
Like the Apollo missions of the past, Orion will have to endure incredibly high temperatures during re-entry of Earth's atmosphere.
A journey that began with the power of the launch of the Space Launch System 25 and a half days ago, about to reach its final minutes in the searing heat of re-entry, where temperatures around Orion will build up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
While re-entering Earth's atmosphere, the spacecraft slowed to about 300 miles per hour. As it continued its descent, Orion's parachute system, containing 11 total parachutes, deployed once it reached approximately 9,000 feet and a speed of about 130 miles per hour.
And there it is, high over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view. Orion under its chutes descending toward splashdown.
These parachutes help slow the crew module to a much more manageable speed, roughly 20 miles per hour, for a water landing off the coast of California.
Splashdown. From Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
When Orion was deemed safe to approach, team members jumped into the water and attached hardware that steadied the capsule.
What we do at NASA really is all about collaborations, and the collaborations that we've had with the Department of Defense in particular over the past years, their hard work and their dedication as they went through a great deal of planning, hardware development and processes, and a lot of practicing to get to this point.
And that team, made of a combination of NASA and Department of Defense personnel, has put in years of work to make sure that they were ready.
It's just been a long time coming. We've been working this mission for a while, and we've done a ton of training. And every time you do training with a mock-up capsule, you don't have any of that. You don't have parachutes. You don't, hear it coming back to the atmosphere, the sonic booms, and all of that kind of stuff. And today, that actually happened. It's just amazing.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out.
And said that we were going to achieve what we thought was impossible.
Of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Many things have happened since. but we knew we were going back. This is the program of going back to the moon to learn, to live, to invent, to create in order to explore beyond. Oh, it's a new day. A new day has dawned. An Artemis generation is taking us there.
What President Kennedy said was, we choose to go to the moon and do other things, not because it's easy. And what President Kennedy said was, we choose to go to the moon and do other things, not because purpose of going back to the moon in preparation to go to Mars. And yes, it's hard.
What an exciting day at the Kennedy Space Center. You can see the Orion spaceship coming out of the ONC building where we've been assembling it for several years. As big a step as this is for us today in rolling out and starting the journey of Artemis 1 to the moon and beyond, we're really excited for this.
Hi, I'm Terry Virts, and I want to talk about floating in space. One of the first things that you need to realize when you get into space is that even though you feel like you're falling, you're not. You can let go and you float. It's not a problem. It's something you really have to train your brain to think about. Another thing that you need to learn when you first get into space is how little force is required to move you. And another cool thing is you could be on the ceiling. Makes it very easy when you're working. You have to get some work done up here. You just go up on the ceiling and get your work done.
Our team of scientists is busy getting their experiment ready for launch. At the same time, NASA is preparing the space scientists who will operate the experiment aboard the International Space Station.
So as astronauts on board the space station, we are the hands and eyes of the researcher. They are telling us how best to do the science, but it's up to us to make sure that science runs correctly.
Astronauts train all over the world, including at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Here, they learn not just how to live in space, but also how to conduct science in microgravity.
So many folks ask, how much training did you do before launching to the space station? And the answer is many years. So we train in a lot of big areas. Number one is systems on board the ISS, robotics, how to do spacewalks, and actually science itself. Now, we don't learn about a lot of the science experiments we're doing until we get up there. But what they are teaching us is scientific techniques.
The techniques astronauts learn range from using tools like pipettes and microscopes in microgravity to operating scientific hardware aboard the space station. For example, we study combustion aboard the station because it behaves differently in microgravity. You wouldn't want fire to get free inside your home in space, though, so we've created special facilities to contain it. If it looks complicated, it's because it is. And it's just one of the pieces of equipment astronauts must master before they go to the space station.
Hi, I'm Tracy Neff, and this is Sharon Ranke, and we're in PDL2 right now, and we're down here at JSC to do the fluids and combustion facility training for the combustion integrated rack and the fluids integrated rack.
So basically, PDL2 is a mock-up of the U.S. lab. Since 2008, we've been coming down and training all the crew members who will do payloads on the space station. We've been training cosmonauts as well.
How many crew do you think you've trained at this point?
Probably 50.
Probably over 50 crew members we've trained.
Today, Tracy and Sharon are back at work with a former student, NASA astronaut Mike Fink. This isn't Mike's first rodeo with the station, or this equipment for that matter.
So back in 2008 and 2009, we were aboard the International Space Station when a space shuttle, STS-126, Chris Ferguson and crew, dropped off a whole big bunch of packages. And we carefully and slowly put it all together. But when it was all done, we had a brand new, ready, fresh out of the box combustion integration rack. Since then, our friends at Glenn Research Center here at NASA, we've been able to get some fantastic science about how things burn in space. Without gravity, without convection, things burn. And by understanding that better, we were able to make more fuel-efficient engines and things here on planet Earth, helping save our energy.
So you can see it in the video. All the hoses are within the ring, and so they all fit in nicely, so they shouldn't interfere with us.
Sounds great and looks great. Thank you.
Well, a lot had changed in 11 years since he was up there. So he did get most of the information again, and it was a new experiment, so he hadn't seen that either. He did great. He's a quick learner. He's great to work with, very methodical, and good humor, which is always, we like to have fun when we're training.
The lab camera will be showing, and I will be like looking, and I'm gonna go slowly, and that would be your chance to say no.
Yes. We are watching you, yes, and help you whenever we can.
This isn't the last time Tracy and Sharon will work with Mike. When he launches to the station and works on combustion projects in space, they'll watch over his shoulder through a camera broadcasting to Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio.
Christina, this is Sharon with an answer to your question. So they do want you to go ahead and install the cable tie.
Yeah, thanks for having that done for me.
Anytime.
Being able to operate and maintain the space station while conducting crucial research could get overwhelming. Luckily, astronauts have strong support teams on the ground and often develop personal connections to the research.
I was so impressed at the different things we'd be working on, cancer or Parkinson's or even Alzheimer's disease. So as a physician, these meant a lot to me. These personally were very important experiments that we needed to do. But in all honesty, the entire crew, not just myself as the physician, were excited about working on these experiments. You get a little nervous at first as you begin to pipette or even utilize a microscope, which I hadn't used in years. But you quickly learn because you realize how important it is to the science. And the investigators and scientists running you through all these experiments were fantastic and just walked us through it every step of the way.
Yeah, just keep us posted, but Drew and I are ready to continue up. Good working with you guys today, and I'll see you soon.
We got here on a Thursday, and it's currently Sunday. We've been in a big day yesterday filling up these wells with gel solution and getting ready for handover at 7:30 a.m. on Monday, ahead of launch on Tuesday afternoon.
April 16, 1972. Apollo 16, man's fifth lunar landing, sat silently on the pad awaiting its mission. Inside the astronaut quarters, its relaxed crew ate Sunday breakfast. John Young, a veteran of 3 previous space flights, was commander. Ken Mattingly, command module pilot, would conduct orbital experiments around the moon, while Charles Duke explored the lunar surface with Young. April 22nd. Young and Duke would find themselves strapped into a small electric car called the Rover, bouncing across the lunar plateau known as Descartes.